Hi, this is Linda, and I'm back from my trip, so we're going to do another Talking in American English video. This is lesson 46. It's about my second language experience. As you know, if you've been keeping up, I went out of the country. So the introduction, I want to tell you this. I am back from South Korea, and I used my limited Korean there. It turns out I was as hesitant and nervous about speaking Korean as some of my students are when trying to speak English. And the reason I put that in bold is because that's sort of a special phrase, an idiom. Turns out, it means this is the way it happened, that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but it ended up this way. I was very hesitant. First of all, most Koreans could speak English much better than I could speak Korean, so we ended up talking in English. Also, or secondly, when speaking briefly with someone who didn't speak English, I experienced sudden memory loss and hesitancy, doubting my ability to communicate well enough. I chickened out. That's an idiom. It means I was like a chicken that was afraid, and I backed out of the conversation. Or I froze. That's another idiom. I froze. I went blank. My mind couldn't think. I was like a deer in the headlights. That's a common phrase in America for many. You're just like that. That's a deer in the headlights, because when a deer steps in front of a car, sometimes it just stops and looks at the car and then it gets hit. So we call it acting like a deer in the headlights. So I was very nervous and very unsure of myself. Thirdly, I did best when I had some complete sentences already memorized that fit certain situations. Expressing a whole sentence well gave me confidence. When I tried to translate each word separately, I got discouraged. This was too slow for good communication. Finally, the person speaking Korean might say something I should have understood, but they spoke so fast that I didn't catch it. Catch it means understand it quickly. I didn't quite catch what you said. I didn't understand it. Or they used slang or casual speech, or their sentences were a little different from what I expected from my book study, so I didn't quite understand. In conclusion, even though I mentally know the structure of Korean sentences, and even though I have learned many Korean vocabulary words, my best speaking experiences came when I could say a whole sentence, like by memory, a whole sentence or a phrase with ease without trying to put a sentence together piece by piece. The whole sentence is one thought. I can say that thought. The more I use whole sentences correctly, the more confident I became. So, the lesson for today is about whole sentences and common phrases that you might say. Begin now using the ones you already know, like hello, hi, goodbye, bye, so long, see you later. It's good to see you. It's good to meet you. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. My name is Linda. What's your name? Where are you from? I am from Texas in the United States. Where do you live? I live in a town in the United States. Okay. So let's keep learning more complete thoughts. And that's going to be the focus in the future. This and future videos will have two basic parts. The first part, a more formal lesson on grammar or vocabulary or pronunciation, but using sentences. And then a short conversation that will help you memorize useful sentences or phrases that you can probably use often. So here's the grammar note. One of the uses of en as a suffix, now it has other uses, such as at the end of a verb we use it sometimes, but this is a different use that uses a verb but in a different way. This suffix can change a noun or an adjective to a verb. Here are some examples. If something is hard and you want it to be soft, you soften it. By the way, we don't pronounce that T when we change it to soften. I will soften the butter so it will spread more easily. And that comes from the adjective soft. If something is too soft, you harden it. It comes from the adjective hard, such as the clay is still soft, but I will harden it by baking it. If something is too dark in color or too heavy in weight, you lighten it. It comes from the adjective light. The red paint was too dark, so I added white to lighten it. I will remove one box from the cart to lighten the load. The first one has to do with color. The second one has to do with weight. If something is too light, you darken it, from the adjective dark. The room is too light, so I will close the curtains to darken it. If something is too short, you lengthen it, from the word length, which is actually a noun. The explanation is too short, so let's lengthen it. If something is too thin, you thicken it. The soup needs more flour to thicken it. If something is too long, you shorten it, from the adjective short. The board is too long, so I will shorten it with a saw. If something is too dry, you can moisten it. Again, that T is silent. Moisten. It's from the adjective moist. My lips are very dry, so I will lick them to moisten them. Now they're not dry. If something is out of line, you can straighten it. Straighten or straight, it comes from the adjective straight and becomes straighten. Her teeth are crooked, a little bit, so the dentist will straighten them. If something is too weak, you can strengthen it, from strength. The muscle is weak, but exercise will strengthen it. If something is too strong, you can weaken it. The coffee is too strong. Adding water will weaken it. If something is slow, you can quicken it. When my heartbeat is slow, exercise will quicken it. It goes faster. If something is too dim or dull, it doesn't have enough shine to it, If something is too dim or dull, you can brighten it from the word bright. The metal looks dull, but rubbing it with a cloth will brighten it. If something is too narrow, you can widen it. For the adjective wide. The road is too narrow for the traffic, so they will widen it. So those are some sentences using those words that have been turned into a verb by adding en. It's not a verb already like we have with get, got, gotten. That's all verb, but this is a different word. It's not a verb, and we made it a verb by adding en. It doesn't work with all adjectives, but there are certain adjectives that we do that with. Now here's the conversation for today, and this is a true story. Me, 2 days before I left for Korea, I was in a car wreck. Friend says, "You had a car accident? Were you seriously hurt?" There's my car. That's really my car. Me, my car was totaled. That means it could not be repaired. But I was not hurt. I only had a few minor bruises. Friend, I am so relieved to hear that. Did it affect your trip? No, it didn't, I say. I was able to make my 14.5-hour flight to Korea just fine. How long did you stay in Korea? Me. Because of my age, I decided to add a few days to rest between sightseeing trips, so I lengthened my trip to 26 days. Friend says, "What did you do? And where did you go?" Me. I stayed in a hotel in Seoul most of the time. I visited palaces, temples, towers, an aquarium, the arts center, a famous cathedral, 2 Hanok villages, popular downtown areas, parks, and many other famous places. Now, the reason these are in green is to point out that when I'm only talking about one thing, I have to have an introductory word. And in this case, it's "and" because that starts with A. "The" because it's just this one art center, it's a particular one. And a famous cathedral. There are other cathedrals, but this is one famous one. So I put a, or "and," or "the," or "the" in this case because it starts with a vowel. So remember, when you're speaking, if you're plural, you don't need one of those. You can, like I say, 2 Hanok villages. I put a number, but I didn't have to have an A or an "and" or a "the." Anyway, let's keep going. The food was delicious too. I went on tours outside of Seoul with an English-speaking guide to see the DMZ, the Garden of Morning Calm, and Nami Island. Now, because Nami Island is a special place, sometimes places you don't put an A or a "the" in front of places all the time when you name the place. I also rode the KTX train to Busan and stayed for 2 days. I walked on beaches, rode in a cable car, went to the top of 2 tall towers there, and stood on glass floors high above the street. I visited some open-air markets, and I experienced a nighttime drone light show on the beach. I traveled by plane, by bus, by subway, by train, and by van. Friend, what was the hardest part of the trip? Was it hard to communicate? Me. The hardest part, I'm looking at all the different parts, but one was the hardest. So I can say the hardest part of the trip was climbing steps and steep slopes. However, I prepared for that by exercising a lot before I left. Some Korean friends went with me to many places, so they helped me communicate. For instance, sounds like fun. Yes, and I was able to communicate well with my limited Korean and talking with many Koreans who knew English. I know how to read Hangul too, so I could read some signs. That helps. Friend says, do you have pictures of your trip? Me, of course. They are on my phone. Let me show you. So here's some practice sentences. I was in an accident, or I had a car accident, or I had a wreck. All of these mean the same thing. I wasn't seriously hurt. I wasn't badly hurt. I wasn't injured. I wasn't badly injured. I could use any of that. I am relieved to hear this. It means I was worried, but now I'm not. I am relieved to hear this, or I am glad you are okay. I stayed in a hotel, or I stayed at a hotel. I was both in it, and that was my location, so I could use in or at. I visited famous places, or I toured famous places. I saw, or I could say I watched a drone show. I experienced a drone show. I went to a beach. There's more than one beach. I went to one of them. Or I walked along the beach. If I'm talking about a particular beach that you know, I walked along the beach. I went on a tour, or I took a tour. I rode in a cable car. I crossed bridges. I know how to read Hangul. Do you know how to read English? Now you may want to put something else in there. I know how to read Japanese, or I know how to read Spanish. Do you know how to read English? I can read Hangul. Can you read English? The hardest part was climbing. I'm comparing it to all the different things I did that were hard, but this one was the hardest. The most interesting place was the DMZ. Now, I said most interesting instead of saying the interestingest, because interesting is such a long word. Hard is a short word, so I've just added EST. A longer word, I don't add EST. Instead, I put most. Or if it's the least amount, less, least. The least expensive way to travel was by bus. I don't add anything to expensive. I use least in front of it. The most beautiful place of all the beautiful places, and I saw a lot of beautiful places, the most beautiful place was the Garden of Morning Calm. So I'll end with a picture that I took at that garden. I hope this helps. If you will let me know in the comments whether you need sentences that are shorter and easier, or if these sentences were okay, or you want them even more complicated. Please tell me in the comments. Thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.